I just want to say a few sentences, then my wife will say a few more sentences, and then we have Sean Gabb. I just want to say some very few things about the PFS. There will be more systematic things to say about it on Sunday at my closing lecture. Here I only want to remark that we started at a very small gathering 10 years ago. Most people were attendees from the United States because I had worked in the United States for almost 25 years, and most of my contacts were, of course, United States people. In the meantime, you see what has come of this and from where all the people who attend this come. I'm quite satisfied to see, in particular, how many people we have who came here repeatedly. There are quite a few people who came here 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times. The other day I talked with Richard Lynn, and we figured out he had been here out of these 10 meetings 8 times. He wasn't here for the very first meeting, and once he was ill, but otherwise he was here every time. And there are quite a few people like this. And if people buy the same product, if you have repeat customers, you must obviously doing something right. So I'm satisfied to see I must have done something right here. And I want to mention in particular that it is a personal joy for me also to have among the speakers quite a few who have actually attended the very first meeting. We just mentioned them. Tom DiLorenzo was here at the very first meeting. Sean Gabb was here at the very first meeting. Frank van Dun, who will speak on Sunday, was here for the very first meeting. Guido Hülsmann, who will arrive tonight, will be a speaker tomorrow. He was here for the very first meeting. Enrico Colombato was here for the very first meeting. And also Stefan Kinsella was here for the very first meeting. So we have also shown staying power to... Oh, yeah, but you were also here for... I just mentioned the speakers who had been here for the... Deanna, you are right, you were here for the first meeting, I know. I just mentioned... I just mentioned... Deanna, I apologize, but I did express myself correctly. I said that we have people here being speakers who were also speakers at the very first meeting. Did I say that, or did I not say that? All right, but so with this, I'll give the word to my wife, and maybe she has to say something even nicer to Deanna.
You see what kind of sexist person I have to deal with. He especially moved to the Middle East to have a mellower wife, you know. Before he had an American wife, but I mean, he decided at a certain point in his life, no, this can't do, you know, so let's go Middle East where the wives are a little more humble. But and Diana, I insisted on you be the first speaker here. Otherwise, maybe the next 10 years, no woman ever would have talked here. So maybe you know that I have a PhD on economics, and especially on Misesian economics, Mises' contributions to economic thought. So some of you who were not so sexist dared to ask me, you are an economist, I mean, you have a PhD, why do you never speak? You know? And the reason is, whenever I come up with an idea, oh, Hans, see, can't I talk on this subject? He says, but you have to be very prepared. It has to be very good. And then I say, but Hans, some of the speakers are not so good, you know. One guy from Britain, what was his name? He even talked about reading books or something like that, you know. So whatever, but he's my husband, and humbly I played my role so far. But last night, after I realized Norman Stone is not here, I grabbed the opportunity and I had this epiphany that I have to talk. Of course, I didn't dare to talk on a theory subject, whatever, you know, on something of higher value, but I decided I talk to you about the background and the making of the PFS, how it started. It's a very personal, private account, and you probably don't all know how it all started. In 2003, I decided to do my PhD. I thought you might better get a PhD than, I mean, before you get a facelift, you might get a brain lift. So for doing a brain lift, I decided to do a PhD. And because I had worked for a couple of years at Istanbul University at the Institute for Banking, and the professors, many are my friends, I decided, okay, now I go there and do this. So I started, and they offered me subjects like, I was always intrigued with method and Menger and Hayek, and then all of a sudden somewhere I ran across the name of Mises. And although I don't look like it, once in a while I'm also a rebel. So this guy intrigued me, and I said, okay, I do Mises. Are you sure? Or why don't you do Mises U-turn? That's the famous subject, you know, where Hayek's U-turn, yeah. Hayek, being a Mises scholar, changes his mind after meeting Popper and decides to, I mean, put some space between himself and Mises. Okay, but I said, no, I mean, because when I started to check where can I get something about Mises, in the library of Istanbul University, because we did not participate in World War II, you could still get the 1940 edition of Human Action. And so I did start to read that and got a few more books. And then I ran across the Mises website. At the beginning I thought, I mean, my friends had recommended things like maybe you do something statistical, you know, you take some numbers from government and then you compare. In economics it goes that way, you know, it resembles this curve and that's it, you have your PhD. But I said, no, I prefer to do some reading, and because I love reading. And even if I would stop in the middle, I would have read something and learned something. But I never thought I have to go to Auburn, Alabama. You know, because if you look from here, it sounds also like a very strange place. You know, to where? You know, to Auburn, Alabama. Okay, but I was already so far that I said, okay, now regardless of what, I am brave and I go to Auburn, Alabama. I went to the institute. The next possible date was the Supporters Summit with the title Property, War and Depression, if I'm not mistaken. And Hans was also, of course, a participant, and he had his book, Myth of National Defense, he was presenting. And also it was the year when Ron Paul got the Schlarbaum Prize. And I had decided I will take every opportunity and I will talk to every professor, because I'm a little bit of a kind of a shy person, but I was sitting all in the front and taking notes and really try to catch their attention. So because of this, just because of this, I bought Hans' book. And because I said I have nothing to do with defense, I don't need his book, you know, and I codenamed him because he was somehow in a rush, the professor with the flying hair, because his hair was so Professor Flying Hair. And I went to Hans and said, Professor, would you please sign my book? And by the way, I can also speak German, just to get a little warming, you know, because he's also not the warmest person to chat up. So he signed, and I said, okay, I'm coming from Turkey, and so on. And he said, okay, I was invited to Turkey, but I didn't find a sponsor. All business, of course. And I said, okay, we might sponsor you. And that was it. I bought a bunch of books, went home, and started to do my studies. Then, finally, in 2005, he came to Istanbul. And I was busy with my daughter's university problems in the United States. So I put Jay in charge of him. I said, just take care of him. You know, he's an important person, and I will try to catch him. Okay, so 2 or 3 days Jay took care of him, and then we were together and we talked, and he did his lectures. And after that, he just went back to the United States. I was writing my PhD in Antalya. I had gone there to have my piece, and all of a sudden the phone rings. And a student, a girl who had listened to him, said, okay, you know Professor Hoppe because you sponsored him. Can't you send him an email that he helps, I want to go to Mises U. And I have a little difficulty with being accepted, and he might intervene. Okay, just because of that, I just sent an email to Hans and said, okay, this and this girl wants to come to Mises U, can you help? And he put a good word in, but just to be nice, I said, do you think I also need to come? You know? And he said yes, which I didn't expect at all, you know. So I said, okay, then I might as well. I talked Jay into also joining me, and also my professor from Istanbul University, one of my professors, Kaya Ardic, who is also a very good friend, he accompanied me to the United States. It was in Auburn, Alabama, during that conference that we became a little closer with Hans during all those going out for dinner, because you always have to make great plans to eat something in Auburn. You know, it's not like here. You always have to make sure you team up with somebody that you get fed in the evening, otherwise you don't know where to go. So whatever, in one of those dinners, he had the idea of starting a conference. And I wanted my PhD. So actually, I didn't care about any conference, you know, But, and then the name, it also sounded strange to me. Why? Because I was a Misesian, I was not a Hansian back then. I didn't do too much of reading also of his stuff. And on top, when he was supposed to come to Turkey, I thought, why of all these guys, this extreme guy has to come, you know? He actually has nothing to do with what I'm doing. But anyway, I mean, Ralph Raico was, I think, the name father of Property and Freedom Society, because you wanted to name it the Ararat Society, and I said on Google it will always appear together with the Armenian problem, you know, because once you say Ararat, all the Armenians, Armenian culture moves in, and so Property and Freedom was a better idea. Then in March 2006, I wrote my PhD in Las Vegas, of all the places. In an apartment in Las Vegas, I did, in 1 month, I did the whole, basically, and then at home I made it nicer when I returned. And this is important because March 26, I'm in Las Vegas and writing my PhD. And Hans is moving here. May 2006 was our first conference. And in between also my father died, so it was really not so easy to start the first conference, but he was so determined to do it and believing in his idea that we anyway decided to do it, and with the support of all my family, especially of Lale and of my other daughter Yasmin, also of my brother Ergin. We provided him with every help, also all our entourage and people who work for us tried to help, and we tried to make it possible. It was not easy back then to bring people all the way from America or Australia or whatever, all these countries you are coming from, to Bodrum in Turkey. You know, by now it's much, much easier because everybody knows, and you know somebody who knows and who was here, and you ask and they recommend. But back then, nobody wanted to come here. It was very, very difficult, besides of our few friends who were believing in us and in this crazy project. It was a time of bird flu. They said, no, there's bird flu, we don't travel. Whatever, we had to talk to people, and we really tried very hard to make the first conference happen. At the beginning, I was not really sure what Hans had in mind with his conference, you know, because I'm an economist, and I was thinking we will talk about higher economic theory. You know, and my favorite subject is method, which is extremely complicated. And Hans is also an expert in this. And but in his mind there was a salon, like in old days people had a salon for intellectuals. And from my side, we even made seminar for young students in January. So was it 3 years? 2 years. 2 years in January we had here a small group, and we're talking quite high-minded ideas with young kids. But in time the conference developed into something like a Club Med of conferences, you know. And it is, I was thinking sometimes, is Club Med a socialistic idea? But it is not. I was very happy to hear recently on German TV that it was started by, or attended at the beginning by Russian aristocrats. Because they didn't have any money anymore, but they did not want to deal with money when they vacation, you know. So in the tent villages, there was no money. And they were free of decisions and free of, once they paid, they were free all the time staying there about, should I spend, should I drink another beer or whatever, you know? And we took over this idea because we love also to spend vacation in Club Med and tried to avoid everything which was annoying us and especially Hans in other conferences. Because if you go to so many conferences like Hans, you exactly know what is good and what is bad about it. So if you, in a city you don't know, you always have to look for a place where to eat. It is difficult. Constantly you have to think, where am I going to have lunch? Where am I going to have dinner? Or should I go to the supermarket? And so on. So we try to make sure that here you leave this kind of worries outside and can concentrate on just talking to each other and socializing. And there is also, because everybody is in the same place, you have a lot of time to make private conversations and come closer. And I think in a way we also became a club, because when I saw last night how you all folks greeted each other. I mean, at the beginning, nobody was knowing anybody, you know, so everybody was keeping a distance. But by now, you are greeting each other like a family, and it's a good feeling. I think, like Hans was saying, it's a good product, and we hope we will be strong enough to keep it going for a while. For the 10th year, we were actually planning more of a celebration and more to prepare us in a more fancy way. And even Lale, my daughter, who is in charge of the hotel by now, together with Jay, who is right now running the hotel basically with Lale, she wanted to get married. And I said, no, 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 either you marry in May or you cannot marry the whole summer. It's out of question. Summer is conference. 2 weeks before the conference, you have to concentrate on it. We cannot think about any wedding. And 2 weeks afterwards, we are exhausted. We can't do wedding, you know. So, and I said, see, these people are serious people. They make their plans 1 year in advance. So you cannot play around with that. So the poor one, waiting, she became pregnant by divine intervention. So you see, we do some small and funny sacrifices for the conference, which is some background. And of course, because of the political situation which was mentioned before, we did not really feel for too much of fireworks and so on, because in Turkey there's draft. And if you have draft, whatever governments decide, everybody has to go along, and many young people die without wishing to really go to war or participate in anything, you know. So there's a little dim mood all over. Let's hope that it will improve. The whole politics of the Middle East is, at the moment, and also of this country, is like a showcase for everything what Hans writes in his books. So thank you for listening to me. And I hope the conference will continue in a wonderful fashion.